And looks like we have started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Senator Chip Curry. I'm presiding over the work session on the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business. The format is not new to all of us. Purpose of this meeting is for the committee to receive information from staff and others in order for members to consider the legislative proposals before them and make recommendations or reports to the legislature. Only committee members, the committee analysts, and those specifically invited to attend will be participating in the work session using Zoom. For members of the public wishing to observe this meeting, it is being live streamed on the committee's YouTube channel and will also be recorded for viewing after this meeting is concluded. We're also broadcasting the audio of this meeting on the legislature's website at www.legislature.maine.gov. A reminder that if you are in the panelist section of this YouTube meeting, if you are a member or an invited guest, you will be seen in our live stream and also on our recorded channel. Please mute your microphones when you're not speaking. This is a public meeting, and I'll remind everyone to keep the comments in the and subject to freedom of access laws. And so I'll remind everyone to keep substantive comments out of the chat and into being spoken so that they're recorded. If you're having any technical difficulties, we will be. If you're having any technical difficulties, please reach out to the committee clerk. And you can reach her at 287-4880. Her name is Eva Reed. At this number, I'd ask members to introduce themselves. Representative Geiger, would you start us off?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. My name is Representative Valley Geiger. I represent District 93, Rockland and Owl's Head.
Good morning. My name is John Andrews. I represent District 73, which is Buckfield, Hebron, and Paris in Western Maine. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Pepworth. I represent House District 133.
Hi, everybody. I'm Amanda Collimore. I represent House District 106, Pittsfield, Clinton, and Detroit.
Good morning. I'm Senator Scott Seaway and represent Waterville, Winslow, Fairfield, Benton, Albion, Clinton, and Unity Township in District 16.
Good morning. I'm Jack Ducharme representing House District 111, which is Solon, Norridgewock, and Madison.
Good morning, Maine. I'm Representative Sue Austin, and I represent portions of Gray, Raymond, Casco, and all of Fry Island.
Representative Keith Hassan, represents District 81, which is Winthrop, Reedfield, and a part of it.
Good morning. My name is Reagan LaRochelle, House District 86, which is part of Augusta.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sue Bernard, and me and my chickadee are from District number 149, which is Caribou, Westmanland, and New Sweden.
Good morning. I'm Representative Tiffany Roberts, representing House District 6, which is comprised of the majority of North Berwick and South Berwick, and I'm your House Chair.
And good morning, everyone. My name again is Senator Chip Curry, and I represent the 26 rural, coastal, and island communities of Waldo County. At some point, I think there should be a prize if one of our members could do everyone's introduction exactly as they always do it. A little memory trick there. Before we begin our work today, I want to take a moment to thank you all for your hard work so far this session. Serving the Maine legislature and on this committee can be extremely demanding and time consuming. While we may disagree on certain policy areas, I believe every member of this committee is deeply committed to serving their constituents and working in good faith to confront the issues that come before us. That being said, as we approach the halfway point on the legislative session, the presiding officers have asked all committee chairs to take a moment to remind both legislators and the public participants that maintaining decorum is vital to ensuring that we complete our work in an orderly and efficient manner. It's also important for upholding the integrity of this committee. If you need a refresher, the rules or procedures in committee are the same as the rules or procedures in both the Senate and the House under the joint rules. In addition, the Maine Legislative Code of Ethics charges each legislator with civility and responsible conduct, both inside and outside the State House. Here's how that translates to our committee work. Committee members are required to show respect at all times for witnesses and for other committee members. All discussions must be conducted in a manner that is not disruptive. Imputing the motives of another committee member is prohibited. Engaging in the discussion of personalities of other members is prohibited. A committee chair has the power to limit testimony at public hearings as necessary for the orderly conduct of the hearing. And members shall refrain from interrogation that is argumentative, oppressive, repetitive, or unnecessarily embarrassing to hearing participants. In an effort to maintain order and decorum, all questions must be addressed through the chair. All speakers must be recognized by the chair. Questions relating to order are decided by the chair, subject to appeal by the committee. If a participant violates the rules of order and decorum, the chair can take action to limit the ability of the participant to continue disrupting a meeting or public hearing. Republican, Democrat, Independent, or unenrolled, every single person who appears before this committee deserves respect, as do our esteemed colleagues who serve the committee. I want to thank each of you for your efforts in helping us meet our duty of civility outlined in the Legislative Code of Ethics and demanded by our constituents. Thank you. At this point, the only item on our agenda is work session for LD 1885. I see we have some invited guests. I want to let people know that LD 1885 will be the only issue on our agenda. And I will ask Representative, we'll open up the work session for LD 1885. Chair recognizes Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Having read the amendments that were dispersed, I would like to move ought to pass as amended with the sponsor's amendment for LD 1885.
Is there a second? Chair, see the hand of Representative Geiger. There's a second. Chair recognizes Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had my hand up before we got into the work session. Could you send me a copy of that letter, please, just to have it on file?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you. And so we have a motion and a second. I believe I'm out of order if I speak, right?
We have a motion. No. Now the discussion. The discussion on the discussion on the motion. And
I would love for Ms. Olson to walk us through both proposed amendments, and hopefully we can work collaboratively to get something that's going to be unanimous, because I think the intent of this bill is very solid.
Representative Andrews, the motion on the table is, I'll ask the analyst to walk us through that one. If you wish to comment in terms of any differences in referencing and talking, but that's the motion that's on the table. So you're welcome to reference any differences of things that you might propose as an alternative. Chair recognizes Representative Bernard.
Thanks.
Was I just recognized? I couldn't hear.
Yes, you were.
Yeah. Okay, sorry about that. So would you just tell me again the procedure of, are we going to go through the bill now with Ms. Olson? Is that correct?
Well, we've already gone through the bill, so now it's a discussion of the. I mean, we've already done the bill analysis in previous work sessions. So our standing was we've now seen an amendment, and I'd be happy to ask Ms. Olson to walk us through. Ms. Olson, have you prepped? You don't have an analysis of it, but you have if you're comfortable walking us through it, then that would be great.
Thank you.
Yes, I would be happy to walk through the amendment that the motion has been made on. I'm going to put it on the screen. Okay. And I will make it big. It's not, but I will. Just let me adjust my screens. Okay, so the changes to the original bill are highlighted in yellow. The first thing that happens is it amends the first section of the bill, which is the definition of insufficient veterinary services. And it's an addition to this section, and the addition is that it requires the commissioner, when determining an insufficient number of practitioners of veterinary medicine in a veterinary specialty related to emergency and critical care, and only emergency critical care, not livestock, to give priority consideration to regions within Aroostook County, Oxford County, Penobscot County, Piscataquis County, Somerset County, and Washington County. I'm going to stop saying county after that. I'm just going to go with the regular counties. So the impact here is that when the commissioner is determining areas of insufficient veterinary services for emergency and critical care, priority consideration is in these regions. So when they are developing what an area of insufficient veterinary services for emergency and critical care is. And that is at the discretion of the commissioner, who is required to work with the state veterinarian and a member of the Maine Veterinarians Association. Section 2 of the bill, which is the definition for underserved geographic region, also includes a geographic limitation. And that is that, again, the commissioner, in determining an underserved geographic region, must include Aroostook County, Oxford, Penobscot, Piscataquis, Somerset, and Washington. Must include means that you have to consider them in this definition. They must be in the definition, but it doesn't preclude other regions as well. So it's a must include, but can include others, but it has to include those counties. The third section of the bill that's amended has to do with the number of loans annually and in aggregate, as well as what we were referring to as the slots for spots. And it did change so she did put forward an amendment during the first work session. And I have, in discussions with her, I did suggest a slight change to the wording here, and I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. But the first change is from 10 annual awards to 8, which was based off of discussion the committee had, which would bring the aggregate total to 32. And then again, the amendment she had originally put forward had at least 4 loans going to large animal veterinarians. But as I thought further about the amendment and in discussions with her, this is all based on if resources allow. So if you limited it to 4, but resources only allowed 4, then all of the slots would go to large animal vets, and it therefore wouldn't expand the program. So in order to expand the program and make sure there are a number of slots for large animal vets, as the program is currently for them, she accepted the suggestion of the phrasing around at least half of the annual loans awarded. So if it's 8, that would be 4. If it was 6, that would be 3. But no fewer than 2, which is the current provisions within the statute. So at least half of the annual loans awarded would go to applicants who demonstrated a likelihood to practice livestock veterinary medicine in the state, and no fewer ever than 2. Should the authority receive fewer applications than the required number of awards for applicants who have demonstrated a likelihood to practice livestock veterinary medicine in the state, the chief executive officer may award the remaining loans to other eligible applicants. So if there weren't 4 applicants for large animal vets, those slots wouldn't go unfilled. They could be filled with other eligible applicants. So that it represents a slight change to her original amendment to account for the fact that it's based on as resources allow, and resources can change from legislature to legislature from year to year. And then we also have the change here in section 5 of the bill or she had proposed originally a $50,000 maximum loan amount per year. And that has been reduced to $35,000, which is $10,000 more than is currently in practice. And then the last, no, excuse me, these two changes, they're not the last two. They go hand in hand. So there's a reporting provision, which is basically requesting FAME to give the same information to this committee as Mr. Norbert provided to the committee at their request at the last work session. So currently, the individual who receives the loan and forgiveness must report on their practice and how much of their practice is dedicated to livestock care. And then their bill included emergency and critical care, but now also requires the location of the veterinarian's practice, especially as we are requiring the definitions for insufficient veterinary service and underserved geographic region to be defined by certain geographic regions. So this would specifically track where the person's practice is located and the region that practice serves. Because we all know that a veterinarian's practice could serve a small region, but also could be quite far reaching as well, given the nature of our state. So that information will be required to be collected from the awardee. And then there's a new section requiring a report. The sponsor put forward, it's broken into essentially two parts. So for the first 5 years, beginning in December of 2022, FAME shall report annually to this committee, and the report must include the number of applications received each year, the annual number of loans awarded, the total amount dispersed through the program, the total amount of forgiveness granted, the total number of veterinary students assisted through loans, this total number of students who were actually awarded forgiveness, and the number of participants working in livestock and working in emergency and critical care, and the number working in underserved geographic regions. And then after the first 5 years of a separate report to this committee, the authority could then just report this information as a part of their annual report that's submitted to this committee every year. And most of, but not all of this information is currently collected and reported to this committee in FAME's annual report. In speaking with the permission of the sponsor with FAME, they are happy to include this additional information in their annual report moving forward. And then the last piece is an appropriations and allocations section. Just to note, this is not an official draft of this section. This is my version. It would be drafted by OFPR to be more formal, but the appropriation and allocation would be to provide the necessary funds to meet the annual awards of 8 up to an aggregate of 32. After further discussions with FAME, this would require an additional $920,000 on top of the current $200,000 used for the program. That's a total of $1,120,000. And the reason for that is that when awarding the total number, when you make that award to the individual, you need to have the ability to make that award over their 4 years, possible 4 years of schooling. And that's what gives us that number. And I'm happy to answer questions, but that's the end of the amendment. I'm going to stop sharing unless somebody wants it open.
Thank you.
You can always
Ms.
bring it back
Olson. If someone needs that, we'll ask for it as we move along. Representative Collmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Olson, I'm just curious in the reporting why we would be requiring FAME to do a separate report instead of just starting out by including it in their annual report. I hate giving people more reports if they're already writing us one. And I know how limited manpower is everywhere. Could we just ask them to call it out in their annual report as its own section instead of requiring the effort that goes into writing an entire new report?
That would certainly be something that could be considered as a friendly amendment to the amendment. I know from conversations with FAME that that would be something that they would be happy to do. And I can also, if you'd like, the committee would like to see what this report in FAME's annual report currently looks like. I can pull that up for the committee to take a look at. And I will note Mr. Norbert and Representative Fay are both in the attendee list as well. So she could probably speak to the reason behind her decision to have it drafted as it was. If you want to know her reasoning.
Representative
I think
Palomar?
I'd like to propose that as a friendly amendment, if I could, that we don't require FAME to write another report. It seems silly since we already read their annual report. Would you accept that, Representative Roberts? Thank you.
And the second was Representative Pebworth. No, Representative Geiger. Second, is that okay? I think you are a second on that, or Ms. Reed, can you check who was the second on that motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I was the second.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I would accept
And that's
that.
fine. Okay, great. Appreciate it. And Chair recognizes, and I'm noting Representative Palomar that you had a question that well, we seem to have dealt with it. I was going to say it. We'll in a moment we'll bring in Representative Fay. Actually, Ms. Reed, if you could bring in Representative Fay, that would be great. But we'll keep questions as much as possible for Rachel, and then move on to Representative Fay if we have any questions directly for her. Chair recognizes Senator Searway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to say, I just wanted to check in and see what you thought about a sunset review. I think that, I don't know if it should be like 4 years for the sunset review and see how it's working, who got the benefit, if it was for the North or if it was working well or what, but I think seems so that we should have a sunset review. And even on budget, I mean, you don't know how times change and that sort of thing. So that what I'd like to see.
Chair recognizes Representative Ducharme.
Thank you, Chair Curry. I had two questions. One, I think for Ms. Olson, any significance to or reason why the language that is in number 3 of section 1 must give priority consideration to regions isn't replicated in section 2, number 6. Commissioner must give priority consideration. To me, that's a disconnect there. And I don't understand why you wouldn't replicate that language between both of those clauses. It seems like that's what the bill is attempting to do.
No particular reason. My thinking behind the language is when considering the practice of emergency and critical care, this might, in determining that, you may be looking at either larger or smaller regions, sort of thinking about like an urban versus rural. So my thought was that in determining an area of insufficient veterinary services, that could become a slightly more specialized determination than just a geographic region. So I went with something that was a little more flexible in terms of language, but they could certainly match.
Thank you. My second question, do I understand the preliminary fiscal note to mean that this is going to be $1 million add over existing spending on an ongoing basis?
you faded out. I think I got you. You glitched at the end there, so I think I got your full question. Yes, this would require an additional $920,000 in an ongoing stream to continue to support the program. FAME already receives $200,000 through their student financial assistance line, and this would require an additional $920,000 to support the program ongoing.
Want to take a second. I just got a note that Representative Fay has a conflicting committee work that she needs to do. Did anyone have any questions directed at Representative Fay? Representative Bernard?
Yes, good morning, Representative Bay. I'm glad you're here. Thanks very much for your dedication to this whole issue. Would you have any problems, by the way, if the language were repeated? And I don't know if we need a motion to make that happen in your bill, that it mentions the actual counties in the second reference, that it be this, that we say it in the very same way. Not only should there be preference, but then in another paragraph, they mention something more generic.
As long as we're talking about the emergency and critical care piece, I think the intent, and I believe the intent of the original bill and the intent of this committee is to make sure that parts of the state that are currently underserved in terms of emergency and critical veterinary services, you know, I've worked with Rachel pretty closely to try to get at that. If we need to fine tune that a little bit more, I think that's fine. I just want to make sure that the large animal section remains as it currently is. I think that's really important because I think it is a different definition and a different scenario, because I mean, quite frankly, most of the state is underserved currently by large animal veterinarians. Doesn't really matter where you are. So I want to make sure that the program as currently designed in the large animal space, we keep fidelity to that. But the other piece, yeah, whatever works for the committee to get to that place, and with Rachel's guidance, I'm pretty sure we can get there.
And I'm right with you, Representative Fay. I just wanted to make sure that, I mean, it's noted right now that what we have in the state for served areas, I've seen the map, and the map shows nothing north of Bangor. And that's why I would hope that this bill really addresses that concern very specifically. And certainly other areas will be able to benefit, but I just want to make sure that north of Bangor, Aroostook County, that has some good benefit from this particular bill. And I think we may agree on that. I won't put words in your mouth, but.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I just address Senator Searway's sunset?
Sure.
That's what I was trying to get at with the additional reporting. Just to make sure that the committee was keeping up on what was happening on the ground and how the program was working. So, that I think that's very appropriate.
Chair recognizes Representative Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Jessica, thank you for your work. This has been actually a joy to have this collaboration. So thank you. Thank you. I concur with the previous good colleagues that I would not necessarily want to see a special report, but I would want in some way, and I know FAME, certainly Mr. Norbert will know how to accomplish this, is to have it be highlighted, because just judging from what has happened in this new term that we're in, we have 10 new people to this committee. And who knows what can happen in the next term or the next term. So if it isn't highlighted in some sort of way, the attention for it to be recognized as new and how blah, 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 blah is successful and has what it's addressed may just sort of slip by with brand new people. So I would ask you if you think that that is a valuable note to make, or how you feel.
I think that's a very valuable note to make and a really good point, Representative Austin. Absolutely. And I think we get inundated in the off session and, you know, going off and doing other things. And I always found that, particularly on technical and new programs, it's helpful to be reminded of why we did what we did and where we're coming from and hopefully where we're going.
Thank you so much.
Chair recognizes Representative Geiger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Fay, for the fine work you're doing on this bill, and it obviously is addressing a real need. I just want to support Representative Bernard in saying that I would be happy to support repeating the counties for emergency and critical veterinary services, but I agree with Representative Fay that it's pretty clear the entire state has a shortage of large animal veterinarians, so I would want that to stay the same. But I certainly hear from Representative Bernard and others that north of Bangor, the issues are huge in terms of needing critical care veterinary services. So I'd be happy to support that.
Chair recognizes Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to echo the sentiments for Representative Fay. You've been a pleasure to work with, and I think all your amendments are common sense and coming from a place of honesty to make this the best bill possible. So in hearing everybody speak, I would make a motion to duplicate the language.
Representative Andrews, I think that's out of order. Because we have the motion on the floor, we can offer to the
offer an amendment. Maybe is that what I was thinking?
Offer a friendly amendment, and if that's rejected, you can vote down the motion and the new motion.
Okay, that's what I was going for. Apologies for the process. I would duplicate the language that Representative Ducharme spoke of to include the must, and I would also want to keep the large animal livestock language that Representative Fay mentioned. I think that's kind of from both sides to make this a collaborative bill and hopefully go under hammer. So if there's a second, I'd like to go forward.
Representative Roberts, that was your original motion. Do you feel comfortable with that? So the intent is to duplicate the language. I'm seeing nods from Representative Geiger. So to adjust the motion as described. I have a question with that, just Ms. Olson. The only thing, it's this balance of saying where it all needs to happen and what happens if there's a future unmet need in one of those counties that aren't listed. Is there still enough flexibility for emergency services in that? Is there still flexibility in areas that are not listed in that county if we make that change?
I'm off mute. The flexibility exists it says it must include these areas. It doesn't say it can't include other areas. It just has to include these. So there is still flexibility there. I think where you might see inflexibility might just come with resources potentially. But so again, that would be ultimately up to the commissioner, but yeah. And okay. I'll just say to my point, that I don't think there's really a significant difference in changing the language there at all. So it can easily read in the section 1 that the commissioner must include those counties in the emergency and critical care definition. And just to be clear, because a couple of people have mentioned it, that was only an addition to emergency and critical care. The livestock element has not been touched.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Chair recognizes Representative Hassenfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two questions. One is just on this motion, that is sub 3, efficient veterinary services. Is the language going to stay must give priority consideration to regions, or is that changed to must include those counties?
Correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding was that that was requested to be changed to must include instead of must give priority consideration to.
Chair recognizes Representative Bernard.
There, couldn't unmute there for a moment. Would it be clearer, I'm just questioning now for Ms. Olson, to say giving preference to, like must give preference to, rather than must include? Just questioning if that language would be more clear. I mean, that does indeed change meaning. So I recognize that. But is that what we're after? Not sure. That's what I'd be after. Giving must give preference to rather than must include.
So, Mr. Chair, I believe, can I just speak to that real quick?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I might have phrased that incorrectly. When I was saying duplicate the language, I was hoping to go off of Representative Fay's amendment to duplicate the commissioner must give priority consideration to regions, to include that in section, move that from section 1 to duplicate it into section 2. So if I misspoke, I apologize.
That is essentially what I'm saying. So forget what I'm saying. I think that Representative Andrews said it well.
All right, so that's the Representative Roberts, that was your understanding of the friendly amendment that you accepted? Okay.
May I take a moment to just put it on the screen so we can all remind ourselves what it looks like?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just so I want to make sure that because I did not interpret that the same way. So this phrasing here, insufficient veterinary services, again, only talking about emergency and critical care. So the desire is to actually duplicate. And again, just to note, this is draft language. I may get a note back that says you should use the word preference instead of priority. So just to be clear, it will come back to the committee, but the meaning there is the same. It's not the same as below, but must give priority consideration to. And then there's this addition of regions within, but must give priority consideration to. You want to see that language down here instead of must include. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
Roberts, can you address that? Is that correct from what you agreed to?
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. For myself, I'll let you guys determine if you're all clear.
And if you could stop sharing, I appreciate that. Thank you. And Representative Hassenfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And then my final question is, how were those specific counties arrived at in drafting this amendment? That's a question for
sounds like a question.
whoever.
That sounds like a question for the bill sponsor. Do you want?
I think so.
Bill sponsor.
I'm not sure I heard the question. You were breaking up there, Representative Hassenfuss.
Yeah, the question was just why these counties are the counties listed and not counties.
Another, because it appears that those are the counties that are most underserved.
And is that like based on data that we have, or just?
We don't really have the appropriate data at this time, and I'm hoping that some of the reporting requirements will also get us that data. think it's a good place to start. There are less numbers of veterinarians practicing in those areas, and there are no emergency or critical care clinics north of Brewer. So
West of Lewiston, right?
yeah. So I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I really do have to go to another meeting now, and I really just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the committee for this really good collaborative work, and I appreciate everyone and all the thought that you've put into this. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's that time of year where we're bouncing from committee to committee. We completely understand. Chair recognizes Representative Bernard.
Thank you very much, Senator Curry. I will just bring this up one more time because I'm not sure I'm clear about it. I understand that we've asked for information to be highlighted in the reports, but I do want to bring up again the idea of a sunset for this bill so that we can look at it quite specifically and see what it has accomplished after whatever length of time we determine, maybe 5 years, maybe 4 years, maybe whatever we say.
At this point, it would have to be accepted by the motion sponsor. Is there a position of Representative Roberts? Do you have a position on that? Do you want to include that, or do you want to not include that?
With this being an existing program already, I don't feel a sunset review is appropriate because that would mean the end of the program. So I think the reporting requirement is fine as is.
So that is not accepted as a part of this motion. I will share that my first reaction to that is we have complete authority on the budget every year to, well, not complete authority, but the legislature has authority on the budget every year to not fund it. And so it could be a program that's not funded if it's determined that it's not successful. Chair recognizes Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With the counties being listed, maybe one metric we can use for reporting, 5 years from now, is to see if those counties are served in the future. And I think that would be a good metric of, if this program is actually fulfilling what you're trying to do. Maybe we can do something with that, just a thought.
Absolutely. Chair recognizes Representative Ducharme.
Thank you, Senator Curry. I was actually thinking the same thing that Representative Andrews was thinking. I know when we were talking about the people that are currently being served by the program, we got a map from FAME saying these are where people are being served, and I thought that was really helpful in advancing the discussion about what the needs really are. And so I think it would be helpful for us to look at where there are currently veterinary services available across the state on a map, and have that as the matrix that we overlay success for this program onto to try and help us in the future. And I think that might be part of that whole reporting piece. So I don't know if that's just a comment to FAME when they start putting their reporting together. Where did you start? Where did you, where are you now? But if we're getting annual reporting, I think that would be helpful.
Representative Ducharme, I'm going to invite Mr. Norbert in because they're the ones we would be charging with the reporting, and I'm curious as to that might be going far afield of what they typically have information for. So I'd love to hear from Mr. Norbert as to whether an assessment of veterinary services is something that they can pull in, or is that information out there already? How that might work.
Good morning.
Mr. Representative Ducharme, did you want to restate your question rather than my paraphrase?
You heard my question?
Yes, Representative. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I mean, that sounds really cool, the map. I'm not a map person, but I could work perhaps with the Department of Ag to get that info. FAME certainly doesn't keep, the list of where services are right now, but I'm sure we could collaborate with the department to try and pull together the information and maybe bring it in a map, or maybe just have the list of towns, but we can work on it.
I think a visual presentation is going to be much clearer in measuring your success. When you look at the size of the state of Maine, it doesn't do a whole lot of good to say we're going to put 5 new vets in Cumberland and York County, when those guys drive 15, 20 miles, and they can have a vet service they can have 5 vet services within that same time frame, as opposed to coming up here or up in Aroostook County, where you might have to drive 30 miles, but hey, it is what it is.
Right.
We live up here for a reason, and unfortunately, sometimes those are the distances that we have to do to obtain those services. So it would be helpful to see it on a map so that we know the efficacy of the program. That's all.
Right. Sure, I understand.
Thank you.
You bet. You're welcome.
Chair recognizes Representative Geiger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering, given the case made by Representative Fay and the concerns expressed by other members of the committee that we don't lose track of what we're doing and that we have the ability to see that this bill does what we want it to do, I'm wondering if Representative Collmore wants to rethink her friendly amendment.
Representative Geiger, I don't recall the friendly amendment, and was that accepted? If it wasn't accepted, it's not on the.
Was accepted to not give special reporting, but instead that this be included in FAME's annual report. And I would like to avoid sunset. And so I'm wondering if instead highlighting this as a separate report would avoid that with our colleagues.
I'm not in favor of reconsidering that friendly because I don't want to put more burden. I am in the process of doing quite a major overhaul report right now. And if somebody added another report to my reporting process, I think I would lose my mind. So I'm very cautious of what understaffed areas are looking at for that reporting stuff. So I would say that maybe we call it out in the report, but not require them to write a whole other report.
Thank you. So I don't see any other questions. I'm gonna ask Senator Searway, would you like to be in caucus, or do you feel like your people are in a place to vote based on the bill? I'm trying to get a pulse of where the committee is. Some things were floated that are not ultimately in this motion. I'm recognizing that. I think we have a desire to have as strong a bill as possible.
I
you want to caucus, or do you think?
Just probably 10-minute caucus be fine.
Okay, great.
All right, thank you.
We will be at recess for 10 minutes. We'll come back at 10:35.
Eva, you're not muted.
Welcome back. It appears we're all here. Representative Collmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'd like to potentially reconsider my friendly amendment only in that instead of an annual report, still keeping that reporting within their annual report, that we look at a 5-year review of the program. So in addition to the typical annual reporting, we would have a 5-year review that would tell us about the efficacy of the first 5 years of the program, if Representative Roberts and Representative Geiger would be amenable to that.
So let me just be clear that I understand the report. The idea is that it would stay in the annual report as a section of FAME, and then at 5 years, you're looking for it to have a separate kind of larger review, a 5-year review of the program.
Yes, please.
Representative Roberts, is that something you're open to?
Yes, as long as we don't have any sunset or anything attached to it, as long as it's just its own separate report.
No sunset attached, just a separate report.
Okay.
Representative Geiger, you're on board. I see that nod. And Ms. Olson, does that get us into difficulty anywhere or any issues with that? I see your hand went up right away, so I thought there might be an issue.
No, I just wanted to just to remind the committee, only for the committee's consideration on this, that the way that this program works, so this would take effect, it would actually, the way the program runs, the first eligible students with the changes would be in, I think, January of 2023. That the first, so that if you're a freshman, if you're in your first year of veterinary medicine school, then you apply for the program and you're in school for 4 years. So after 5 years, the first people who were eligible for the program would only be in their first year of work. So we'd only have potentially 1 year of data about where these people went. So that would be the only thing for the committee to consider. The other people in the program, with some variation, because you could try to get the loan if in your second or third year, but that the majority of students would still be in school and therefore not actually working in a region for data to be reported on. So you'd only have, after 5 years, you'd only have one cohort of data to really assess.
Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So even after 5 years, if we have just a handful of students throughout the state, I still think it would be useful to be able to track in a report as to where they went. I think that kind of would help with seeing how we're doing for underserved areas.
Representative Bernard.
And is it correct, though, that there may be students who are indeed in their second, third, or fourth year who could take advantage of this program? So they would be out in the workforce earlier than that. So we may have a few people who have been in the workforce more than 1 year. Is that my understanding the legislation correctly?
In theory, yes. I would defer to Mr. Norbert, who would have more information on that. In theory, yes. But again, I would ask Mr. Norbert to weigh in on that.
Mr. Norbert, is there, you heard the question?
Yes, I have no idea. It's possible. That's the honest truth. It's possible, as Representative Bernard notes, that folks might avail themselves of this partway through their schooling. So let's hope there are. It's also possible with this new program, the side program, that they're all newbies beginning as freshmen.
But there's nothing that precludes, sorry, I just want to clarify.
Bernard, yep.
But there's nothing that precludes
Correct.
someone who's in their second, third, fourth year, correct?
Correct.
Great. Okay.
Chair recognizes Senator Searway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to throw this out there where 5 years is quite a while, and then it's also just doing 1 year. Maybe it's a thought to keep track of how it's going every 3 years, and then it kind of breaks it up, but still we're keeping track of what's going on and how it's progressing.
Thank you, Senator Searway. My understanding, Ms. Olson, is that we definitely will be keeping track annually based on this bill. There will be an annual requirement within the FAME report.
Yeah.
But then there will be a time
Final
frame.
review, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Is the committee ready for a vote? Looks like we are. Ms. Olson, Ms. Reed, will you call the roll?
Representative Geiger. Oh, just
Yes.
that was an ought to pass as amended. Representative Geiger. Representative Andrews.
Yes.
Representative Pebworth.
Yes.
Representative Collmore.
Yes.
Senator Rafferty is absent, and Representative Austin is screen sharing.
Representative Austin,
Yes.
can you unshare your screen? There you go. Thank you. Can you turn on your camera?
I can in a minute. How much patience does everybody?
There we go. And your vote is a yes, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Senator Searway.
Yes.
Representative Ducharme.
Yes.
Representative Hassenfuss.
Yes.
Representative Lairshell.
Yes.
Representative Bernard.
Yes.
Representative Roberts.
Yes.
Senator Curry.
Yes. Having a unanimous vote of those present, this bill will be reported out, ought to pass as amended. And that will close the work session on LD 1885. At this point, I'd like to ask, and good work, everybody, and good work to the sponsors, and thank you, Mr. Norbert, for coming here to help us work through the technical questions. At this point, I'd like to ask Ms. Olson to, you have some stuff for us. I think we have follow-up on GEA, government evaluation. Act?
Yes, yep,
Act?
I'm good. I'll take over from here.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we have two things coming up on the schedule. Well, there's three things on the schedule for Thursday. We're having a briefing from BioMaine Association at 9:30 for about 15 minutes. And then we're going to transition to the discussion in regards to the Government Evaluation Act reviews. So the committee has seen the reports from both DECD and MDF. The committee has received presentations from both agencies. No additional information has been requested to my knowledge of either entity. So at this point, the committee needs to decide, are the agencies operating in accordance with their statutory authority? Are they meeting their goals and objectives for each program? And are they successful in meeting their statutory and administrative mandates? And then to a lesser degree, but still required, has the agency increased or reduced filing of paperwork burdens on the public? Those are your tasks to determine. You can find those bulleted points considerations on the handout under GEAs on the committee materials webpage. If the answer to those is yes, they are operating within their statutory authority, that they are successful in meeting their goals and objectives and their statutory and administrative mandates, and there are no concerns regarding filing and paperwork burdens, then all I need from the committee is to tell me that, and I will draft the letter that says that they've met their goals pursuant to the review process. If there are any areas of concern related to those areas of consideration, at that point, we would need to discuss them further, and questions would be directed towards those agencies in order to address those. And I'm sure the agencies would like to know in advance if they would need to bring additional materials or prepare additional information for Thursday. So that's GEAs. I do see a hand.
Representative Cullimore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rachel, I remember asking at one point a while back, I remember in the FDA presentation, MDF presentation, that Mr. Breen had mentioned something about a section that was under their charge that they don't actually do. And I couldn't find in my notes what section that was so that we could evaluate whether we were to take that away from them. Do you remember which section that was and what steps we might be able to take so that they don't have to report on something that they don't do anyway?
So yes, I can pull up that report and take a look. It is in their report. It is, I did take a look at it myself. So there is a statutory requirement for reporting that's still in their statute, but again, they can't really do it anymore. And in fact, I believe that for the other agency that they are supposed to work with, the reporting has been removed from that other agency, which I think is partially why MDF can't do the report as required, among other reasons. As stated, sorry, I'm scanning really quickly through the report. Options would be, you could put in a committee bill that would essentially remove that provision from their statute. So that would be one method to tackle it this session. I believe essentially nothing has to be done. It was, part of the review is to note where there are issues in statute, like areas that are no longer addressed. So no action is necessarily required, but if the committee did want to take action on that section, you could go through the committee bill process. That information would be included in my letter. And I am still looking for that section in the report.
Thank you. And did you want to move on to the quasis?
Sure. I'll send an email with that section information to the committee. So the quasis. I'm going to share my screen in brief, just again, so you can see the materials. You can find this first document on the committee materials webpage under quasi-independent agency review materials. Sorry, I need the little window to go away. So the purpose of reviewing quasi-independent state entities is really, it's an informational process. So unless in your individual review of the materials that are going to be provided to you, you see an issue, it otherwise just serves as informational. So unless there's an issue brought forward, then we would, through a letter, let the GOC know that you have reviewed materials and that there are no identified issues. So again, serves initially as purely informational unless an individual on the committee sees an area of concern. So quasi-independent state entities are defined as an organization that's been established by the legislature as an independent board, commission, or agency to fulfill governmental purposes, and that receives revenues that are derived in whole or in part from federal or state taxes or fees. There are many quasi-independent state entities, 6 of which fall under the consideration of this committee. Other examples include Maine PERS, the Maine State Housing Authority, the Maine Turnpike Authority, the University of Maine system. So those are all examples. The original statute was written in 2013 or I think went into effect in 2013. And then, the committees as quasi-independent state entities are established can consider whether or not they should fall under the review provisions of this statute. But these 6 are within that statute and under this committee's consideration: the Finance Authority of Maine, Loring Development Authority, Maine Technology Institute, Mid-Coast Regional Redevelopment Authority, the Small Enterprise Growth Board, also known as the Maine Venture Fund, and Washington County Development Authority. So what you're going to have when you go to the website, I will admit, when I was pulling the materials together, there are some materials that were missing from the packages, so I am pursuing those now. I do have complete information for 2, so you can begin the process because there are 6. So you are going to look at 3 documents, essentially 3 documents for each agency. The first thing you're going to look at are the policies and procedures around procurements, contributions, and travel policies for each entity. After reviewing those policies, you're then going to look at their annual report on their procurements and contributions. You have one from last year, from fiscal year 20, and one for this year, fiscal year 21. So you'll review those reports and compare their reporting with their policies and procedures. Some agencies have sent a separate document for procurements and a separate document for contributions, and some have just packaged them together. So please pay attention to the titles. And so when you review them, you are reviewing them for their procurement policies and contribution policies. Have the policies that they have put into place ensure the entity gets the best value to the extent possible, that they must establish competitive procurement as a standard, and that any contributions are directly related to the entity's mission and activities. And then again, they're not necessarily submitting the information on their reimbursements for travel, meals, and entertainments, but that they do submit their policies for the committee's review. And I will be attaching I'll be attaching this document to help guide you. You do not need to complete this, and we will not be completing it in committee, but it is perhaps helpful. It's a checklist of how you might be able to go through them. So here's the statutory language on your review and reporting, and then the statutory criteria that you'll be looking at. So do their policies for selection of vendors, are they designed to ensure the entity secures the best value in its procurements? And does it include these 3 bullet points? You can decide based off of your review of their policies if they do or do not. And then by looking at their report of competitive procurements, are they in compliance with those policies? Yes or no? And then the same activity for contributions. And then again, you're only reviewing the policy for travel, meals, and entertainment. So this, I will post a copy of this for you if you would like it as a checklist, so you know what it is you're doing when you review the materials. Any questions can be directed through me to the entities, and follow-up will be scheduled if there are any.
Ms. Olson, I want to be clear. So there is no letter that is required at the end of this. This is just our receipt of it.
No, we will write a letter that says we conducted the review, and if we had any concerns, the committee itself takes no action if there are concerns. The committee of jurisdiction is doing the review to give a report to GOC, who, if there are issues, the GOC then could consider doing their own further work.
Great. Thank you. Representative Cullimore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Olson, is this one of the things that you print off and put on our desks like we had for the other reports, or is that something that I'd have to try to figure out how to print myself?
I do not, I do not have paper copies of these reports. They've been submitted digitally. I don't want to speak for our clerk, but it's maybe possible to, Eva, I don't want to speak for you. Can they get reports from you?
Potentially, I would have to print them at the big copier in Cross, but I think I could do it.
I would appreciate, if possible, getting printed copies that I could pick up, because when I review stuff, I write all over them.
And I'll just, for informational purposes, not that I'm saying that Representative Cullimore should print these at home, that's not what I'm saying, but just to note, they're not very long. So Some are a little longer than others, but they're generally smaller. I'm not saying you should print them at home, but I'm just saying that you're not going to read a ton of pages for each entity, but there are 6. So.
We will infer that as judgment. So, all right. Are there any other questions for Ms. Olson? Seeing none, we've gone through the schedule for today. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Make a
Second,
motion to adjourn.
second, Senator Searway. All those in favor, we just need a hand.